Hello, everyone. This is recording number 17 for Aristotle, a class on the Nicomachean Ethics. Today's topic is the good. Aristotle argues that eudaimonia, happiness, or the well-lived human life is the final good. He is aware, I think, that this is a quite specific approach in ethics. One could also start from a rather different type of question about goodness. One could ask, what is the property that we ascribe to things when we say that they are good? When we say, for example, this is a good knife, this is a good person, this is a good book. There's a famous chapter in Book 1 of the Nicomachean Ethics, chapter 6, where Aristotle turns to the difference between these two approaches. Now, the chapter is sometimes read as if Aristotle responded directly to Plato because, you might think that this question of what is the property goodness is one that Plato asks, perhaps in the Republic. And there are reasons to think that any 1.6 responds to Plato, but it isn't quite on target. Aristotle talks about friends who introduce the forms, and he does not specifically mention Plato. So I think that what he does is, as it were, the more theoretical project of thinking through the difference between his approach to goodness and an approach to goodness that asks, what is goodness as a property that we ascribe to all sorts of things? So, in order to get clear about that, let me say a few things first about how we might characterize Aristotle's approach. Aristotle is interested in what is sometimes called good for. So he does not start from the property good or goodness, but from the property good for or goodness for. But he does not investigate that property in the sort of most general way. He is interested in what is good for human beings. And even that is too broad a description, because that would include, for example, what you might say about, nutrition or medicine. Those things are, in some sense, also about what is good for human beings. So Aristotle's more specific question is, what is good for human beings insofar as we are agents and insofar as our actions are motivated by what looks to us to be good? And then in chapter 6 of book 1, he says, well, perhaps we should explore an entirely different angle, as it were. Perhaps we should ask what the universal good is. And what does that mean? Presumably that means that, well, perhaps we should pursue this other route where we look at, all the instances where something may be truly said to be good, such as this is a good toaster, this is a good person, this is a good book, this is a good knife, and so on and so forth. And when we look at all of those examples, what stands out is that it seems pretty difficult to say what kind of feature all of these things might have in common, on account of which they would be truly said to be good. So that is, as it were, the different project. That is the project that Aristotle does not undertake. And it is associated with Plato's Republic. It is also a major project in 20th century metaethics and also in metaethics today. In 1903, G.E. Moore published a book called Principia Ethica. There he says that how to define good is the most fundamental question in ethics. And people took that to mean that we cannot even turn to normative questions about good lives and what we should do, how we should act, and so on and so forth, if we have not first figured out what the property goodness is. So This is another way of describing the difference between the two approaches. Aristotle's approach, which talks about the good as a well lived human life, is by thinking about as it were a well lived human life, immediately normative, whereas the other approach is metaphysical. I want to leave it here and just invite you to think more about the promise, but also potential pitfalls in both of these approaches.